The Roush Level 2 Power Pack is going to be for those S550 GT owners out there who are looking to knock out 3 of the most basic modifications at one time: an intake, an exhaust, and a tune, all from a trusted name like Roush. Now, the exhaust will be on the aggressive side, so interested GT owners should be aware of that. And the calibration is optimized for 91 octane fuel or higher, but still can be used with lesser octanes if needed, although expect those gains to suffer slightly as those octane levels drop. Price point for the all-inclusive kit will be in the ballpark of $1,200, while the install will involve some cutting of the factory exhaust. So we're gonna knock this one up to a soft 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter here, with a detailed walkthrough to come later in the video. Now, before we go any further, let's talk about the stuff you guys all wanna hear about, and that is dyno numbers. Now, first and foremost, we established our baseline runs. With that in the books, we installed the Level 2 Power Pack, uploaded the calibration, reran the car, and here are those results. Run using our automatic 2017 GT gave us 358 horsepower and 348 pound-feet of torque to the rear wheels. With the Level 2 Performance Pack from Roush, the car is now making 384 horsepower and 373 pound-feet of torque again to the rear tires. Now that's good for peak gains of 26 horsepower over those baseline numbers, and gains of as much as 31 horsepower and 27 pound-feet of torque under the curve. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's break down the Level 2 Power Pack from Roush. And first and foremost, guys, you're gonna have the Roush cold air intake system. No doubt a very solid piece, and one that's very popular within the category. Now this guy is gonna completely replace your factory air box and that cheap paper element factory filter with the reusable high flow dry option that you see right here. Now the Roush filter will not only be an improvement in filtration and also appearance, but also power as well, thanks to less intake restriction, resulting in some pretty decent gains alone. Now, along with those gains, GT owners can also look forward to things like better throttle response, maybe the slightest increase in fuel economy if you're not beating on the car constantly, and also a nice little bump in sound coming from under the hood of that 5-liter power plant. Of course, any sound you might pick up underneath the hood is immediately going to be overpowered by the second part of the Level 2 Power Pack, and that is the Roush Axleback exhaust system, and here are a few sound clips. Axleback continues to be a fan favorite with 5-liter owners here on the site, with well over 100 5-star reviews. And as you just heard with our clips, this thing is certainly going to turn heads when you are laying into things. Going back to my review of the system, I had it coming in at a strong 4 out of 5 on my patented 1 to 5 or 1 to wake the neighbor scale, and that certainly hasn't changed here with the Level 2 Power Pack. You also have to keep in mind, guys, this is still with the factory resonator in place. Cut that thing out in favor of an aftermarket X or H pipe and expect things to get even louder. Now, just like the intake we've already talked about, the Roush exhaust is also going to feature a stellar build quality, and will feature 304 grade stainless steel, mandrel bent tubing, Roush's patented hollow chambered muffler, which will allow for all that boom to be passed through the 4-inch slash cut tips embossed with the Roush logo. So that's 2 of 3 here with the Level 2 Power Pack. Last but not least, we have the Roush calibration and the included dongle. Now, I really like the inclusion of the dongle on Roush's behalf, because in the past, if you wanted to take advantage of a power pack, they'd simply give you a calibration voucher, which you then have to take to a dealership. They would flash it for you. It wasn't a huge deal, but let's be honest, it was a little bit of an inconvenience. Well, that's not the case anymore here with the included dongle. Now, that dongle isn't going to be as fancy as an X4 or RevX device or something like that, but rather as a means for uploading your calibration. However, the RDT software that Roush includes will allow you to read and clear those check engine lights, reset your cam or your keep alive memory, and will even allow you to data log using a laptop computer. So yes, the physical device isn't terribly impressive. The software is certainly useful for most owners. And altogether, the calibration is going to feature improved camshaft timing along with a focus on throttle mapping, which will help give the car a sportier or snappier feel overall. And as I pointed out earlier, if you did want to opt for the additional 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, you totally have that option, but you have to apply with that for Roush or through Roush, and it must be done so within 30 days of your install. And speaking of install, this is a great time to get into things. So again, 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, as I said back at the top of this video, not because these things are terribly difficult to install by themselves, but because there is the smallest amount of cutting necessary to get your exhaust in place. But you're going to encounter that with any axle back for the S550 GT. Now, to give you a better idea of what your day will look like in the garage or driveway, here is a detailed walkthrough along with the tool list.
The tools you're going to need for this install are a 1/2-inch drive, flathead screwdriver, and a 10mm deep socket. All right, so the first step of our power pack install is removing our stock air assembly. Now to do this, you're just going to need to start off with a flathead screwdriver. We're going to disconnect our MAF sensor. We're going to disconnect this clamp tightening down the top of the airbox, and we're going to loosen these 2 clamps that hold the airbox to the vehicle. So with the top airbox removed, the next step is removing the filter itself, as well as the bottom airbox. Now, our car's been worked on quite a lot, so we're missing our screw that holds this down. Normally you would loosen this and you can pull the whole assembly out of the vehicle. All right, now that we have our airbox assembly removed from the vehicle, the next step is removing the air intake tube itself. Normally you'd have to remove your sound tube, which pumps sound into the cabin. We didn't like that, so we already took ours off. So the next steps are going to be removing your PCV hose right here and this breather hose, as well as removing the final clamp that secures the tube to the actual throttle body itself. Okay guys, now that we have our stock airbox assembly out of the vehicle, it's time for us to do some out-of-car assembly with our new air system. Now I'm going to walk you through each step here. You can also go on Roush's site and get some nice printed and color instructions if you don't want to keep rewinding and listening to me the whole time. However, I'm going to walk you through anyway. First things first, we're going to reuse some of the rubber grommets from our stock airbox assembly. So you're going to start with pulling this little rubber grommet off the bottom of the stock airbox, and we're going to move it over to our new one. The second piece we're reusing from our stock airbox assembly is this other little rubber grommet. This is an actual little isolator, and that's going to sit on the inside of the fender well on your new airbox assembly. Now, with those 2 parts reused on the new airbox assembly, you can go ahead and discard your old one. All right, the next piece is putting on our weather stripping here. It's got these nice little plastic divots, and you're just going to pop those inside these little rivet holes on the top of the airbox assembly. Now you might have some excess material here on the end, you can just cut that off. All right, so with your weather stripping installed, the last piece is installing this little breather tube. This is what actually pulls in cold air from the front of the vehicle to the air assembly. So now that our new airbox assembly is all put together, we're actually going to assemble the air intake itself, and I'm talking about the filter and the tubing for the mass airflow sensor. First things first, you're going to put these 2 together with the provided clamp. All right, now that we have our air intake attached to the MAF housing, we're actually going to go ahead and switch over our mass airflow sensor from the stock MAF housing to the new one, and that's just a little Allen key head. Okay, now that we have our mass airflow sensor installed in our new mass airflow housing, we're gonna go ahead and install this in our new air assembly. Now you wanna make sure that the mass airflow sensor is facing towards you and towards the front of the air assembly so that the plug has space to plug in once you install it. All right, once you have those two bolts hand threaded for the filter itself, you're gonna go ahead and tighten those down using a 10mm socket and an extension. Cool, so now that we have our mass airflow sensor, our air filter, and our air box assembly all put together as one piece, we're gonna go ahead and install this in the vehicle. We're not gonna put the tube on yet. We wanna have some room once this is in the vehicle so that we can move this around, play with it a bit, and get everything seated. Then we'll tighten everything down. Now, before you install the intake filter and the air box assembly, you wanna make sure that your air inlet lines up with the hole that's down here hidden behind the front grille. You also want to make sure that your mass airflow sensor has enough slack so you can plug it in once you put this all together. Now that our air filter and our air box is all connected, we're going to go ahead and do the last step, and that's actually installing the new air intake tube, as well as all the plumbing on all these connections. Before we calibrate the vehicle, we need to pull a 4-digit alphanumeric code off the vehicle as indicated on the voucher card. That code is a little hard to find, but if you find your PCM down here, I'm going to point to it and show you exactly where it is. It's a 4-digit code on the hardware number on this sticker that says Continental. Now that we have our 4-digit code from the PCM, we're going to go ahead and plug in our Roush dongle to our OBD2 port, and we're going to download the Roush Diagnostic tool so we can actually calibrate the vehicle. The OBD2 port is located just underneath the steering column to the left-hand side. All right, so with your dongle plugged in and connected to your laptop, you're going to want to install the Roush Diagnostic tool. You have instructions on the voucher itself for first-time users. Just go to the website and download the tool from the web page that they provide you. Once the diagnostic tool is installed, you're going to actually load it on the laptop, and then we're going to follow the rest of the instructions to calibrate the vehicle. Okay, now that we have the Roush Diagnostic tool up and running on our laptop, the first step is to select our device, which is going to be the dongle that's plugged into the OBD2 port. So you're going to select this drop down right here. We're going to select our Dashbridge CX dongle. Now that we've selected our dongle device, we're going to go ahead and select Vehicle ID. All right, once you hit Vehicle ID, the software is going to read the vehicle, it's going to pull up your VIN, and it's going to confirm your vehicle information. Once that's confirmed, you're going to go ahead and select Module Programming on the left-hand side. All right, once you've selected Module Programming, you should have a screen pop up that says Pcm Software Installation. You're also going to get a prompt right here that's going to ask you to locate your voucher and enter the code on the voucher itself. Once you select Enter Voucher, you're going to get a pop-up, and you're going to enter in the voucher code on the back of the voucher, and you're going to enter the voucher family number on the front of the voucher. Now, once you've entered all your information, go ahead and select Redeem Now. Now, once you've entered your voucher code and the family number, you're going to get a pop-up that looks like an error. That's okay. That's supposed to happen. The next step is you're going to enter in that 4-digit tear tag number that you pulled off of the PCM. So go ahead and click OK. Now, once you've entered your tear tag number, go ahead and hit Redeem Now. Okay, once you have your tear tag information from your PCM plugged in, you can go ahead and click Redeem Now. Now, if you have an issue with your tear tag and hitting Redeem and it gives you another error after you've pulled the correct info from the vehicle, you'll want to actually give Roush a call. They'll walk you through pulling the correct PCM number if you don't have that physical number imprinted on that sticker on the vehicle. Now, if everything worked as it's supposed to, you'll get this nice little pop-up screen that says the redemption was successful and flash is enabled. Go ahead and click OK on this. And then go ahead and click Flash down here on the bottom of the screen. This is actually going to reprogram the computer on the vehicle. So once you click this button, it's very important that you do not unplug anything. Now, once you've clicked Flash, it's going to hang for a few seconds. and then it's going to come with a confirm programming pop-up, and it's going to ask that you verify you want to flash the vehicle. Go ahead and click OK. Now go ahead and follow through the on-screen instructions. You're going to cycle the engine without actually turning the vehicle over, and then you're going to click OK. All right, once the flash has almost completed, you're going to get this pop-up screen that says cycle the ignition. Now, if you're working on a 15 or newer, like we obviously are, you're just going to click the engine button off without your foot on the pedal. Go ahead and click it again without your foot on the pedal. And then go ahead and click OK. All right, now once you've done that, you should get this final pop-up screen that says flash complete, and then you can go ahead and disconnect everything from the vehicle. All right, now that we have our cold air installed on the vehicle, we're gonna go ahead and do the second half of our power pack, and that's installing our axle back system. All right, tools for this install are gonna be a 1/2-inch drive, 1/2-inch extension, 15mm deep well socket, 13mm socket, 10mm deep well socket, flathead screwdriver, and then optional but very helpful, a dead blow mallet, some penetrating oil or lubricant, and an impact wrench. All right, now that we have the vehicle up in the air, it's time for us to start installing our new axle back. Now, your factory system is all welded, it's one piece, so you're gonna have to do some minor cutting for this install. It's nothing too crazy, you're just gonna have to have a cutting tool, and you're gonna need a marker to mark your cut before you actually start. Now, it's really easy to actually do this. All you gotta do is hold your muffler up underneath your stock muffler and line up the hanger and the tip itself. And then once you've lined everything up, go ahead and place your new muffler against your existing pipe, mark where you're gonna cut, and you'll be good to go. All right, now with our cut marked right here, I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting our pipe off. All right, so once you've made your cut, you're gonna do the same thing for the other side. And once your muffler is broken free, as you can see here, you wanna take a little bit of lubricant and spray down the rubber isolator up here. It's gonna make it a lot easier to pull the stock muffler from the vehicle. All right, so once that's all sprayed up, you should be able to pull the muffler off pretty easily. Just slide right out. All right, so with the factory muffler removed from the vehicle, you can now put your new Roush mufflers on. When you're putting them on, make sure the Roush emblem is facing downward and the hanger is facing on the inside of the vehicle. That'll help you decide which side these go on. Also grab one of your clamps and go ahead and place it over the top of the flared end here. Once that's on, you can go ahead and bolt it up to the vehicle. All right, once you have the muffler in place and connecting to the flow tube, you might have to use a little bit of muscle as you just saw with my dead blow. When you have it in place, go ahead and slide your clamp over. Get it nice and lined up with the end of the flare end on the muffler itself, and use a 15mm socket and go ahead and tighten it up. All right, then we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. All right, with both of your axles in place, it's time to install these nice polished tips. Now you're gonna use the last two clamps that are included with the kit, slide those onto the tip itself, and you're gonna slide it onto the muffler. Now, I always like to use a little bit of WD-40 on the muffler as well, makes sliding the tip on a little bit easier. All right, and with that sprayed down, we're gonna go ahead and slide our new tip back on. All right, then we're gonna do the same thing for the other side. All right, so with both your tips installed and lined up, you're gonna go ahead and tighten those down. Same deal, it's a 15mm socket. Okay, so with both of your exhaust tips connected to your mufflers, you might see some misalignment, as you can see up here. That's not a big deal. You can actually move the pipes around a little bit by loosening these two hangers back here. To loosen these, we're gonna use a 13mm socket, and then we're gonna use a pull jack, push this up a little bit and tighten it back down, and we should be good to go. Okay, once you have this supported with the pull jack, go ahead and double check your alignment. If you like where it sits, you can go ahead and tighten your hanger back down and you should be good to go. That actually wraps up our review and install of the Roush Power Pack for your 15 and up Mustang GT. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things Mustang, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.